from childhood to adolescence to adulthood and so forth. You see, life is full of letting go of one form so that another form can come into being. I have to let go of infancy to be born into childhood. I have to let go of childhood to be born into adolescence. I have to let go of adolescence to be born into young adulthood. And so it goes on and on and on. Each passage shifting me into a new way of being. It's a time when the old order of life is upset, it's disturbed, it's disrupted. Even if we're throwing a party about it, which we usually do. Don't you think the parties in a way help?
Yes.
We're having a big party because we just ended this really important time in our life. Yeah. It's also a time when my sense of reality can be challenged. Because there's an end of something that I have become used to in my everyday life, right? And this is when I enter in a state that anthropologists call liminal or liminality, which actually means betwixt and between. Liminality. It comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. The threshold is a part of the house where you're neither inside or on the outside, yes? It's in betwixt and between. It's that space in between. And it's in this space, this liminality, that is neither the old way or the new way, that I learn what I need to learn to prepare me for the new beginning. It's where I learn knowledge and skills needed for the next step. This liminal state is a wonderful opportunity to gain spiritual strength and wisdom and to experience mystical breakthroughs. There's a great book written about transitions by Robert Brummett. He calls it being in the wilderness between endings and new beginnings. Now, once I enter fully into this new way of life, I get through that rite of passage. Do you know what happens? What happens next? I can't ever go back. I can never go back to the way it used to be. Doesn't mean I don't yearn for the way, how many of us spend so much life thinking about the good old days? But can you go back there? Can it ever be the way it was? I love that expression. You can't put your foot in the same river twice. Get it? Can't put your foot in the same river twice. For example, before the bombings at last year's Boston Marathon, anyone could hang out at the finish line with a big backpack on their back, right? And nobody would even take notice of it. But now tomorrow for the Boston Marathon, the first one since the bombings, there is a liminal state where we have to find our new footing. The past year has been spent by professionals gathering knowledge, gathering information and wisdom about how to do things differently, right? They've had to find new ways on how to protect the public, the runners and the spectators. The marathon is in that liminal state, being on that threshold between the old way and the new way, with new information. And we'll never ever, right, be able to go back to the way it was. It'll never ever be the same, the way it used to be. Right?
Right.
So the liminal state means that I'm not in the old way of life anymore, but I'm also not quite yet in the new way of life either. I'm in that neither world. Neither. And the neither world is the most powerful place I can be. Just take that in for a moment. The neither world is the most powerful place I can be. How many of you have had a recent shift in your life where you're on the threshold? You're in that liminal state. You know what I'm talking about then. It may be scary, anxiety-producing, because you don't feel grounded, but you're in that place of unlimited possibility. What's the first lesson of the quest? Possibility junction.
No, can't forget that.
A key word to being in the neither world, a key word to being in this neither world, folks, is surrender. Let go and let God. This is a time where you're not resisting what is, hopefully. Because resistance only makes the liminal state last longer. Let this time be a time of gathering up new wisdom, new knowledge, new ways of being. Another key element to a rite of passage is this is a journey that I have to take myself. No one can do it for me, right? Just like going through the birth canal, or when one dies and goes over to the other side, even though there might be people around to love and support me, it's a journey I must take by myself. It was a journey that Jesus, even though he was surrounded by a mob of thousands of people, Hosanna, blessed is the one who goes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest, he was taking that journey by himself. He was entering symbolically a rite of passage, and he had to do it alone. Actually, was he completely alone? No. There were people there who loved him and supported him. And it's true in our rites of passage too. Like a baby being born, the baby must take that journey through the birthing canal by itself, but there's parents on the other side, right? Doctors, medical personnel, nurses cheering that baby on. So we too, when we're going through our rites of passage, it is something we have to do by ourselves, but we also can be loved and supported by others. One place we can get that love and support is in our spiritual communities. Help is always present. Even if you don't have any physical being to turn to, spiritual assistance is always there. Years ago, one of my dearest friends woke up one morning and she found herself on a couch in a house of somebody that she didn't know very well. And she had young children at home, and she realized that she had drank too much the night before and had forgot all about them. And this wasn't the only time that had happened. But on this particular morning, she had a perceptual shift and finally realized that she was a severe alcoholic. And that was an assessment that she had to come up with by herself. I had seen it for years. All the blackouts, and I was young at the time, being in the car with her driving drunk. Not me, she was driving drunk. But she finally had that shift in perception within herself, and it took a lot of courage for her to finally recognize it. And she was at that moment about to enter a rite of passage. It was something that she had to do by herself. She had to let go of one way of being and enter into a liminal state. So she drove herself to the hospital, told them that she was an alcoholic and that she needed help. And all of a sudden, something very interesting started to happen in her life. She found that she was not alone. People came out of the woodwork to help her. People cheering her on to a better life, people coming forward to take care of her children, people doing whatever they could to assist her. But the healing work, who had to do that? She had to do it herself. For a month, she was in a rehab center. She was in that place of liminality, gathering information, gathering wisdom. on how to do things differently and gathering strength for her new life. And when she came out, she emerged as a new, refined person, never, ever to go back to her old ways. She went back to school, ultimately got her PhD, and eventually became a psychotherapist who now helps people with addiction. Now, for many years, she's assisted countless people through the same process. She's become a wonderful example in my life and so many people's lives of spiritual strength and courage. You see, when you successfully go through a rite of passage, you then have an opportunity to move forward and to assist and teach others how to do the same. Now, one more element of rites of passage is that rites of passage fortify the spirit. They become milestones that mark the passage of time. We don't read in the Bible where Jesus begins to enter the city of Jerusalem and suddenly says, "Yo, dude, I've changed my mind. I'm going back." Do we? Did we see that in the scripture?
No.
And he had every good reason under the sun to do this, because remember, Jesus knew what laid at the end of that road. He knew he was going to die. But I like to imagine there was a voice within him that asked, "Can you not do this?" Did you get that? Can you not do this? And his answer would have been, "No, I have to do this. My spirit is calling me to do this." Which is a great question for all of us to ask when facing a rite of passage. Can I not do this? And yes, I always have the option of not moving forward. How many of you know people who are stuck in life? It's so tempting to sweep things under the rug and pretend they don't exist. But Spirit will keep nagging at me and nagging at me and nagging at me until I enter that rite of passage. Until I enter into the Jerusalem of my own life's journey. The rites of passage in my life should always be welcomed, for they will refine and define me and contribute to the wonderful spiritual expression that I am destined to become and you are destined to become. So today I want each one of us to go home with a couple of key spiritual teachings. The first key is to keep moving forward. Get on the donkey and go down the path. Enter into the threshold, the liminal state of your next experience. Don't stay stagnant or not move forward due to holding on to the old way of being. The second key is surrender. Let go and let God. Know that there's a bigger plan, a divine plan, a mighty plan unfolding in your life. And then be in a position to help others to go through their rites of passage. If Jesus had decided not to take that journey that day, do you think any one of us would be sitting in a unity service this morning? No. Not in a unity church. We'd be somewhere. Celebrating our higher selves, I do believe that. But we wouldn't have this master's teachings. So let's take this opportunity to pack these teachings into our spiritual backpack and step out in faith that though we have to do it by ourselves, we never ever have to do it alone. And remember, as we stand together now to sing really a song of praise and thanksgiving, one of my favorites, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And I want to do it in a special way this morning. For those of you who know me, I've done this before, but we're going to sing it through once. And I want your palms in, oh, well, I don't know if you can, because you have to hold the book in the palms, but try. Your palms in your hands, stand up, we'll sing it all through together once. Then the women will sing the, then we'll sit down, and the women will sing Hallelujah. Let's just stay seated, that's easier. And the women will sing Hallelujah, and the men will sing Praise Ye the Lord. And when you say your part, you stand up, and then you sit down, get it? We'll do that a couple times. Okay, we sing it all together, all the way through once, seated. Then the second time, the women sing the hallelujah part, the men sing praise ye the Lord. When you're singing your part, you stand up.